UK, Israel's Deputy Ambassador to the UK, Oren Marmerstein. Welcome to you. Thank you very much for being with us. I want to talk about, first of all, the situation in Gaza. Not that long ago, we had an update from the Gaza Health Ministry saying that 1,417 people have been killed in these rocket attacks by Israel since Saturday. 447 of those are children. Israel has made it clear it is at war with Hamas, but it's more than Hamas fighters who are being killed, many innocent people. Would you say that that is a price worth paying?
Thank you, Samantha, for having me here this evening. I think by now, everyone knows that on Saturday, Hamas opened an unprecedented war against the state of Israel. But what is being uncovered as days and hours go by is the atrocities that Hamas have been committing, atrocities that we haven't seen even coming from ISIS. I'm talking about Hamas terrorists going street by street in our villages, house by house, murdering entire families, shooting down babies, raping girls, burning people alive, beheading people. So this is, it's important we won't start the story from the middle. We didn't want this war, but this is the kind of terrorist organization that we are dealing with. This is ISIS on steroids, and we're trying to protect our families.
No one can doubt the horrific nature of those monstrous attacks on Saturday in Israel, with many innocent people killed. But do you accept that many innocent Palestinians in Gaza are now being killed in Israel's response to these attacks? Many who are innocent have nothing to do with Hamas.
So I want to be very clear. The situation is that hard in Israel. It would be good to describe it that we are fighting for our lives. We are fighting to protect our families. I want to ask you, what would you do if you would have a terrorist in your living room? This is not theory. This is Israel reality this week. And if I may, I want to ask the BBC, why can't you call this terrorist that is burning people alive and raping girls and then killing them and beheading people, calling them terrorists? How many more girls do you want or you need to see being raped and then being burned before we'll call this atrocity for what it is? Is it because Israel is involved? We are dealing with a terminology that is different. Why can't we call Hamas terror for what it is? This is, and just to make things clear, this is not an Israeli definition. This is a definition by UK law. This is UK government calling Hamas terrorist, yet the BBC describe it, or when it comes to Israel, the response is, it's complicated.
Yeah, the BBC and other news organisations call Hamas militants, and they are a designated terrorist group by the UK, the EU and the US. The defence of that is that in other circumstances, while other people have called groups, including the IRA, including ISIS terrorists, the BBC hasn't, because they want to not be seen to be taking sides. I want to focus on what Israel is doing in response, and as you made it very clear, it is in response. You said this is not a war that Israel wants. I'm sure you'll agree it's not a war that more than 2 million people in Gaza want. Israel has insisted this blockade will continue until Hamas hands over it's thought 150 hostages, Israeli hostages. But the price that's being paid for that is the death of many innocent people, and your critics around the world will want an answer to that. They will want a response. They will want to know how Israel justifies that.
We are doing everything possible. Unlike this Hamas-ISIS organization, we are doing everything possible to prevent harm from civilians. But
you won't let people out. You won't let innocent people out. There is no humanitarian corridor.
We are now at a situation in which Israel is in a war. And in this war, we're trying to do everything possible.
But a war, under the rules of war, the Geneva Convention, civilians should not be targeted. You've heard from Antony Blinken today, the US Secretary of State, who met with your Prime Minister, who urged for those civilians to not be impacted. You've heard from the President of America also urging the same thing. I think that people will want to know why you can't do that, why you can't let people out to save their lives.
I want to answer people. You know, so many atrocities were happening by Hamas. I want to share with you one story, if you allow me. I've seen this video of a girl. This is an Israeli teenage girl. She's been dragged in the street of Gaza. Her pants are covered with blood. The terrorists are shoving her into a car. But before she's being shoved into this car, you can see her eyes, her petrified eyes, asking us, what are they going to do to me? Samantha, I have two daughters. I don't know if you're a parent. We're doing what every parent would do to protect his children. We're doing whatever every government will do to protect its citizen. It is that bad.
Deputy Ambassador, this is a really difficult situation for you. Your country is going through a trauma. You're here, which must be very difficult for you as well. You're not at home. Describe for us, if you can, what the Israeli people are going through, suffering the worst loss of Jewish lives since the Holocaust.
Thank you so much. Samantha, this is the right question, because never since the Holocaust, so many Jews were slaughtered just in one day. Just before coming to air, someone showed me another pictures, and there are always discussion. Should we show those pictures or should we not? 2 children hugging themselves, burned to death. This is the kind of evil we're dealing with. So we are asking all the people in the world, be with the ones who are, their compass is right. This is a fight against ISIS. Where does the BBC stand? Where does the UK stand? We are grateful for the UK stand. Prime Minister Sunak said that the UK stand with Israel, not just today, not just tomorrow, always. And his Secretary Cleverly called those terrorists for what they are. We're asking people who hear us. Those are people who are beheading people. Those are people who rape girls and then burn them. This is the fight that we're waging. This is the fight that we're dealing with.
Are you concerned that in this retaliatory action to crush Hamas, which is the aim now of your government, that you're going to perpetuate what has been a decades-long conflict, that you will create more generations of hatred from Palestinian towards Israel? Where do you see this ending?
Samantha, we didn't want this war. This war was forced on us after months in which we tried to change the reality in Gaza. We tried to change the economic situation in Gaza.
You know, your critics say that this was coming. Something as awful as this, as horrific as this, was coming because they blame Israel. Many Palestinians, many people living in Gaza blame them for a more than a decade-long blockade where they don't feel free. They aren't allowed out of their own country, as they would call it. And they say that they have been subjugated and they have been kept in what some call an open prison, and many do blame Israel.
So whenever we're trying to reach out to Hamas or to something around Hamas, we are being answered with a vicious violence that we've never seen before. Like I was saying, just a month before this horrific attack, we were trying to change the reality. We were trying to change the economic situation in Gaza. Hamas used this in order to prepare for this war.
How are you trying to change it?
We're trying to allow more goods. We're trying to allow a better economic conditions. We're trying to de-escalate the situation. But it turns out that Hamas used this time just to prepare for an onslaught never seen in the past. And you know, people are asking us, how is this the right thing? I want to ask you, when the UK was fighting the Nazis, when the UK was sending those bombers for the carpet bombs in Dresden, was someone asking Is this the right thing? No, it was the right thing. But because you are fighting evil, you need to be very resilient, and you need to fight with all force.
We just had a line in saying that Israel's military chief has admitted that the armed forces failed in protecting the state and its citizens when Hamas launched its attack on Saturday. This is from Lieutenant General Herzi Halevi. He's told reporters the IDF did not live up to its responsibilities and the lessons would eventually be learnt. When you started to hear about these attacks and the scale of it, what did you think? Because most Israelis, I think you would agree, felt that they lived, yes, under the threat of rockets, but I don't imagine any ever envisaged that something on this scale could have happened.
You're right. We were shocked. We were shocked because this is a different kind of war. It's a war that is coming to your living room. I heard an incident in which terrorists again made their way to the living room, and then the family ran to hide in a safe room. So what did the terrorists do? They took tires and they burned the tires so people will suffocate from the smoke. And it's happening in a living room like mine, like everyone here in the UK. So you're asking yourself, what kind of people are doing those things? We've seen pictures of babies being shot from point blank. I have no idea what kind of a human being can do this.
I want to ask you about security for the Jewish population here in the UK, which numbers some 250,000 or so. We've just heard in the past few minutes the Prime Minister increased the amount of money available to Jewish schools in particular, and synagogues and Jewish community buildings, £3 million. We know that there's some protest plans, some anti-Israel, pro-Palestinian protest plans this weekend, and there are concerns within the community, and there's been a meeting also with the Met and government over that. Now in France, they've just announced that they've banned pro-Palestinian protests, certainly in the foreseeable days. How concerned are you about those here in the UK? Should they be banned? Do you feel there is enough protection for the Jewish community here?
So unfortunately, so often when it comes to attacking Israel, it goes hand in hand with attacking Jews. And anti-Semitic assaults and demonstrations are happening on a daily basis. I think we have full trust, and the Jewish community here have full trust in the UK government, and we're certain that it will do whatever necessary to make sure Jews in this country are safe.
Okay, just lastly, I want to ask you about the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who is in Israel, has met with your Prime Minister in the past few hours, given his fulsome support, as has President Biden. How significant is it that he's there? How important to Israel, and how influential could he be in hoping to see some way through this and a short end to this conflict?
We're grateful for Secretary Blinken, we're grateful for President Biden, and we're grateful also, like I said, to Prime Minister Sunak and to Foreign Secretary Cleverly, who just visited Israel yesterday. So this support, this solidarity matters, because I think people see it for what it is. Hamas is worse than ISIS.
Okay, we do really appreciate your time. Deputy Ambassador Oren Mormosine, thank you for coming in, and thank you for answering all of my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.